The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Hello, this is Rich.
Hi, Rich. This is Ari Lewis with Israel Sports Radio. You're live on the air. How you doing out there?
I'm doing great, thank you.
It's really a privilege and a pleasure to have you on, so we certainly appreciate the time. And one of the questions I want to begin is, it's such an honor to work for any professional franchise, but I mean the Boston Celtics, that is the Yankees of the NBA, the Canadians of the NBA, or some would say the Yankees or the Celtics of Major League Baseball. What is it like to be a part of the greatest franchise in the NBA?
Well, it's a great source of pride for all of us who are involved in it. And, you know, particularly for me, I grew up in the Boston area, you know, watching those great Celtics teams of the 80s, 70s and 80s, actually. And I have a keen sense of what the Celtics mean, not only to people in the region, but since I've been in this job, what the Celtics mean to people across the world. We truly are, you know, the greatest brand in basketball globally. And it's something that just makes you feel good on a daily basis when you come to work every day. So you know, I certainly couldn't have dreamed up a better lot in life for myself.
And it's just so great that you're able to appreciate and enjoy it. You know, not everyone in a position like yours is able to do that. And another curiosity I have is when you look through the line of former Boston Celtics presidents, you of course have Red Auerbach, one of the greatest coaches in NBA history, if not the greatest. And Rick Pitino was also the president of the Celtics at one point. What is it like to follow the footsteps of great basketball minds and just great personalities in the game of basketball?
Well, it's a source of pride, you know, to even be mentioned in the same sentence with Red Auerbach. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't clarify that, you know, the job I do here with the Celtics is not all that analogous to the job, you know, Red did. And when Red started, you know, with the Celtics, he did everything from the laundry, to driving the team bus, to booking the games, to, you know, managing the team and coaching the team, and also being the general manager. You know, my job isn't quite as exhaustive as that, but, you know, Red is the forefather of this franchise. He's the patriarch. He's the person that we all look to when we're seeking, you know, kind of clarity on a decision. You know, what would Red do in this situation? So to be mentioned, you know, alongside Red is really something that I actually don't feel qualified to be mentioned next to him, but it's great to know that, you know, his office was next to mine for a few years, and it was great just to experience getting to know him a little bit and really being able to meet a guy who was really the Benjamin Franklin of basketball.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe Red Auerbach. I think that was very well said. Benjamin Franklin of basketball. Now, you mentioned following the Celtics as a fan, the 70s and 80s, and I'm curious, guys like Larry Bird, Bill Russell, Kevin McHale, all those great players, are they still involved with the Celtic franchise? Do they come in every now and then, maybe talk with the players or talk with some of the employees of the Celtics franchise?
Yeah, we are really blessed with a long line of great players who have played here, and not only played here, but represent really what it means to be a Celtic. And so Doc has been very cognizant of having those guys in to speak with the players, you know, everyone from Bill Russell to John Havlicek to Robert Parrish to Bob Cousy, not just the newer guys, but some of the guys who did it back when you know, there was I guess considerably less fanfare, but certainly bigger challenges for players then. You know, some of them had to work two jobs. But the common bond is they all knew what it took to win and what it meant to be a Celtic. And personally, you know, I've got to spend a good amount of time with a few of those guys, Robert Parrish, Dave Collins, Bob Cousy, JoJo White. They're all very involved with the team still today. And it's been a pleasure to work alongside those guys and learn from them.
And this season is also a very good season for the Celtics, first place in the Atlantic Division. And, you know, a lot of people said, hey, this is all over. The big three are too old, time to rebuild, yada, yada, yada. But yet they're first place. And a 4 seed right now in the Eastern Conference will make some noise in the playoffs. I mean, how do you explain that? How do the Celtics just keep going on and continue their success?
I think really underestimate how good Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, Ray Allen, and let's say and Rajon Rondo certainly are. I think people tend to focus on the age more than they focus on what's actually happening on the court. And when you watch these guys play, you can clearly see that, the big three are still playing at a very high level. And Rajon Rondo has taken the next step in his career. So, frankly, this is where I thought we would be when the season started. I think the lockout presented a unique set of challenges for us and many teams across the league, but we only had 6 players under contract coming out of the lockout. We had no training camp to speak of. And our guys, when you're a little older, I think the one thing that's true is it takes a little longer to play yourself into shape than maybe some of the younger teams across the league. But we found our groove. By necessity, our rotation has shrunk a little bit, so we've got a consistency of minutes, and we've got clearly defined roles with our bench guys. We've got, some guys who've really stepped up, like Avery Bradley and Steensma. So I think, we're formidable. We're the team that no one really wants to play, this playoff season.
I was looking at the roster in preparation for this interview. Now, of course, Rajon Rondo started off his career at the Celtics, and Paul Pierce really turned into a Celtic legend, played his entire career in Boston. I'm curious, those gentlemen can have their jerseys retired pretty easily as far as falling in Celtic tradition. I'm curious, how would it work in regards to retiring Kevin Garnett's number and Ray Allen's number, because they were such a part of the championship a few years ago but didn't play their entire career in Boston. So what is the policy about retiring numbers of jerseys?
There isn't a policy per se. I think, we evaluate each player on their own merit, and I think, winning a championship or multiple championships certainly is the strongest contributor. If you look at some of the jerseys that have been retired, they're not all Hall of Fame players, but they're players who made unique contributions to help us win championships. And I think, in the final analysis, that's what we'll look at when we're talking about those guys. But, hopefully that's a few years down the road and maybe another championship or two under the belt.
Hi, Richard. You're on right now with Raphael. I just wanted to thank you again so much for joining us. It's a pleasure to be interviewing you.
Hey, it's great to be here. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Great. So, Ari, my co-host, talked a little bit more about the Celtics, but what I want to do is more talk about yourself, your career, your history, how you got to your position. So I want to start off with this. I found this interesting when I was doing some background research on you. You graduated from Providence when Rick Pitino was the coach there.
That's right. And I will credit Providence for really fanning the flames of my basketball passion. When I was at Providence from 82 to 86, it was the heyday of the Big East. We had Patrick Ewing and Chris Mullen and, the Villanova team that won the championship with Eddie Pinckney. Just had some great Pearl Washington and Derek Coleman at Syracuse. Some great teams and some great players. And when Rick came to Providence, he really changed the basketball culture there. And, it only took him 2 years to get us to a Final Four. And, my passion for basketball only increased during that time. I wasn't a star basketball player. I wasn't on the Providence team, but I'll tell you, if I didn't already have the basketball bug from the Celtics championships in the 80s, I certainly got it when I went to Providence.
Right, and Billy Donovan, who's now made his name as being a 2-time NCAA championship coach and 3-time Final Four coach, was, of course, the kind of the star and leader of that team. I was just kind of a random question, but I was wondering if you have any sort of communications with Billy Donovan just because of your history in Providence. Obviously, you said you weren't involved in the basketball program, but you guys are both in the basketball world now. So just curious if you guys interact at all.
Sort of indirectly to the school. The school reaches out to both of us for certain, events relating to basketball, but I can't say Billy and I talked directly. He was a year behind me in school, and we weren't in any of the same classes, so while I knew him, I knew of him and have met him, of course, I can't say that he and I have any, have really shared our notes, with regard to our basketball careers. His certainly the 2 national championships a lot more glorious than mine, but I tell you, he's a guy that anyone who went to PC is very proud of, because Billy has done it the right way, through sheer hard work. If you saw him as freshman and sophomore year in college, you wouldn't have projected him to become the player he became, and certainly you wouldn't have projected him to have all the success he's had. I mean, he's done it through hard work, and he's just a great example for anyone who's out there, playing basketball. Put your heart and soul into it. You can build a successful career.
Right, and you mentioned that you do some events for Providence. You get invited back to do some alumni events. Could you just tell our listeners what kind of stuff you've been asked to do in the past few years?
Well, in my position, I get asked to do a lot of speaking at events, but obviously Providence is different for me because I went to school there, and I have such a great feeling for the place and such great affection for it. So most of what I try to do is to really speak with students directly and talk to them about my story, how I sort of was able to take what I learned at Providence and parlay it forward into a career in business and then in the NBA. And that's what means the most to me, and working with the school to try to raise money to help kids to make sure that a good education is available to kids who might otherwise not be able to afford it. And then with alumni, a lot of it is talking to alumni really to help them stay connected with the school and help the school achieve some of its goals through its alumni outreach. But it's something every week. I was just at the Providence President's Council meeting last week, and I've been in touch with the athletic department a few times in the last 2 weeks. So it's a constant communication between myself and the folks down at Providence.
Right, and Providence has hired a new coach this year, Ed Cooley. They struggled a little bit. They went 4-14, but hopefully he's supposed to be a great coach. He did a great job at Fairfield turning that program around. So we're wishing Providence the best of luck. The next question, it may seem kind of silly, but it's something that I've been thinking about a lot as I was preparing for this interview. So in the NBA, there's a general manager and there's a president. So my question for you, and mainly for our listeners, is what kind of responsibilities do you have as president, and how do they differ from general manager?
So as team president, my job is to kind of make sure that the business and the basketball come together to try to produce championships for the Celtics. I mean, the name of our company is Banner 17. A lot of people don't know that. We're known as the Boston Celtics worldwide, but our mission is to win championships. And in order for that to happen, we need to be in complete sync both off the court and on. So I spend a lot of time working with Danny Ainge, not from a basketball talent evaluation perspective. That's clearly his job and his domain, but to work with him on those basketball decisions and the impact they can have. And we, both the short term and the long term, every transaction you make, every trade you make, every free agent signing, it presents you with an opportunity, but it also takes away other opportunities. So we spend a lot of time as a team working through those iterations and thinking through how they impact us short term and long term. So it's really a decision support, that I provide, with regard to Danny and his job, which is to evaluate basketball, opportunities and make recommendations to the management side over here. And I work closely with ownership and Danny on those decisions. But clearly, Danny is the basketball guy. He's played the game at a high level. He's coached at a high level. He's been a broadcaster. He's been an all-star player. He's been a bench player. He's done everything in this game. So I'm very lucky to work with a guy like Danny, who's at the top of his field, and it makes my life a little easier. And then, the other thing that I'm responsible for is making sure that Danny has all the resources he needs so that when opportunities present themselves, like acquiring Kevin Garnett, for instance, that we're able to move on those opportunities because we've got a healthy enough business, we've generated enough top-line revenue that we can make the decision to do that. A good example would be when we evaluated whether or not, to extend Paul Pierce's agreement. Paul Pierce is a great player. We'd love to see him retire as a Celtic. But what you see is a lot of guys at the end of their career end up, their teams don't re-sign them. They don't have the financial wherewithal to re-sign them. we're happy that we've been able to keep Paul around as long as we have, because it's so important to our success. And so the idea is we want to be able to make good basketball decisions that are also good financial decisions, but we don't want to be in a position where we can't make a smart basketball decision because we haven't taken care of the financial side of our business. So my job is making sure we've taken care of the financial side of our business so that Danny can make the basketball decisions we need to make.
Great. Wow, that was a very detailed and thorough answer, which was very helpful to me and hopefully to our listeners. The next thing I wanted to ask you about, which also, honestly, your whole background is very interesting to me. You started out in the business world in the internet media kind of industry, and then you left that in 2003 to become the executive vice president of sales, marketing, and corporate development. And, now, 9 years later, you're the president. So I was just curious if you could real quick give us kind of a play-by-play of how you, I guess 10 years ago you were in the internet media company kind of industry, and now suddenly you're the president of the most successful basketball team in the world. So how did that kind of happen for you?
Yeah, well, it's not the usual career track for most people in sports. Most people start, in the mailroom, as they say, as an intern, moving boxes and doing the real, really sort of working their way up the ladder. I had a successful career in the tech business, and I gravitated toward the internet business, which is really, the business I was in was really a media business, and really our business at the Celtics is a media business. When you think about the business model, it's about aggregating an audience and providing access to that audience to advertisers and sponsors. And the aggregating the audience part is selling tickets and growing your fan base. So those are the metrics that make our business go. So it wasn't too foreign to me when I came into the business, but I was lucky to be able to come into the business, and it was through some venture capital private equity people who bought the Celtics, Whit Grossbeck and his partners, who were familiar with Lycos, the company I had worked for, and were familiar with the work I had done there. When they bought the team, they did what a lot of private equity groups do. They looked at an under-leveraged, under-managed asset and said, let's bring in some professional management to help. And so I was fortunate that I was kind of in the right place at the right time to receive that call from that group. And as they say, you had me at hello when Wick asked me if I was interested. I tried to play it cool, but I couldn't have been more interested.
Great. Okay, so that's how you are now. That's how you got to your current position. The next thing, we only have a couple minutes left. Again, we've for our listeners out there, we're on right now with Rich Gotham, who's the president of the Boston Celtics. The next thing I wanted to ask, you said you're a Boston guy. You're from, I think you mentioned you were raised there your whole life. You live there now. We're in Israel, so I always wanted to ask this to a Boston person. All these movies that have come out, The Departed, Gone Baby Gone, all these Boston movies about Boston cops. Would you say they're realistic? Would you say that they show what it's like to be a Boston policeman or a state trooper, as Matt Damon says in The Departed?
Oh, they're wicked realistic, as we would say in Boston. No, it's funny. Boston is one of those towns that has so much character that it provides an ideal setting to, for people who are writers to sort of sink their teeth into, because there are so many characters. And I think, a lot of those movies that I've seen capture Boston a little more the way it was 20 years ago than it is now. It's not quite as insulated as it once was. But I think if you really think about the essence of the city, it really is a working class city, full of tough people who are big characters, and it's what makes Boston unique. So you can certainly identify it. You watch those movies, and you look at the different characters, and you say, I know a guy just like that, or I know a person exactly like that, and so they're pretty authentic, I'd have to say.
Great. Well, you have a huge game tonight against the Knicks, who are kind of struggling to get in the playoffs and get in that seed, or get the 7th or 8th seed. So we want to wish your Boston Celtics the best of luck in that game.
Well, we appreciate that, certainly. We hope we can contribute to their struggles by getting a win tonight. But it's always a huge game when we go down to New York and play them. regardless of the playoff positioning, Celtics-Knicks is a great game. Going down to the Garden is always just the biggest stage in basketball. It's always a fun night. So hopefully we'll get a win. We'll help to secure our number 4 seed and home court advantage, and maybe give the Knicks a hard time to make the playoffs.
Just a couple of things before I let you go. Of course, if you get the 4 seed and stick within the playoffs, then you get to miss the Heat in the first round, but then you get them in the second round. So it's there's no easy way fight, obviously, to get to the championship. But that's the way it should be with the Celtics. To be a champion, you got to beat the champions, obviously. But one thing I just want to say, I was really smiling when you discussed the movies, because in The Departed and God Baby God, all these movies, they show Boston Celtics jerseys or pictures or team photos, everything. So what is that like when you're watching a movie, just as a moviegoer, and you're saying, hey, I'm the president of that team, and it's in a movie?
Yeah, you have these me moments every now and again. I mean, I don't glamorize what I do too much, but I'm proud of it, as I said earlier, because it means a lot to people. And when you walk around the city of Boston, you see people wearing the Celtics green, and you just feel good that you're able to be a part of something that people take a lot of pride in, that people really care about. And as I said, those Boston movies are pretty authentic. You come to Boston, and that's exactly what you see. Those are not Hollywood sets. Those are people who are real Boston people who walk around in Celtics green.
Wow. Well, thank you for being honest and admitting that those movies are authentic. I feel like watching The Departed right now.
Let's go watch it. All right.
After the show.
We always get the calls from the directors to say, hey, can you send a package of stuff over? Because we want to use the stuff on set. We love being able to do that.
Oh, great. Okay, so it's good to know there's a good working relationship between the movies and the Celtics. Well, Richard, we really appreciate the time. Thank you so much. It's really nice to know that there's a good guy in sports at such a high level, and we appreciate all the answers. Really honest and thorough. And good luck to the Celtics tonight and the rest of the way in the playoffs.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. Thanks very much for your time, and nice to meet you guys, and nice to talk to you today.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Be well, and have a good day out there.
Thanks.